Okay, so today, electric split charge system is what we're looking at doing today. Now, what I did is there's lots of stuff on the market you can either purchase in a kit form, you can make up yourself by picking up bits and pieces from wherever. However you do it, you need some heavy duty battery cable, ideally red black, which would come from your main battery through your split charge relay. I'll go through some bits and pieces as I install them. And now the leisure battery was a little bit of a nuisance because there's different types of leisure batteries. You can use the car battery, you can use a leisure battery. I went for the leisure battery in the end only because I didn't want the risk of any damage being done to a normal standard car battery. Now I'll get a picture of the battery that I fitted because it fits under the driver's seat. Now it's going under the driver's seat because my aim long term is to get the swivel seat for the passenger seat. So it's got a twin seat passenger box that fits on here, and you can get a swivel kit that fits on these bolts. But there's all this electric that's in underneath the passenger seat, which you'll discover when you lift your passenger seats up. This is a 2012 T5, so it's got all these relays that are in this plastic containers, and more importantly, it also had the fuse for the cigarette lighter. So the cigarette lighter that sits in the ashtray is fused. So I've now lifted up the driver. I took both seats out, and there's the four 17mm bolts, 230 in the whole downbrake cable, and I've lifted it all out of the way, so I had a big open space to work with. Then what I've done is I cut the casing for the wire so I could get the two wires and the relay, which is what we've got here. There's a relay as a fuse box, supplementary fuse box you can utilise, and this is the fuse for cigarette lighter. So I've now moved that to the driver's seat because if this swivels I can't have any electrics that moves around with it. So I've taken it all out of the plastic casing. I've started to hide it underneath the floor. There's a big divot, there's a big hole under it, or a recess. As long as it sits below where these bolts stick out here, you should be fine to get the cables. So all I've done is put a bit of tape over to try and keep them together, because my rubber is split slightly under here. So I've put the two fuse boxes that side by trimming back the casing, slide them underneath the mat, and they come out through a hole in the floor under the driver's seat. Now I've also run the battery cable. So this is a 170 amp battery cable, and this runs from the driver's seat, under the driver's seat. It runs under the floor here, and then there is a grommet which sits under here, and I fed it down in the floor, and then down this bulkhead this side and the chassis there's fuel line, and there's fuel line clips which this fits nicely in. So then I run it, there's a couple of extra empty ones which I've then put the main battery cable into, so it's kept out of the way so it doesn't rub on anything. Fed it up into the battery, and I'll show you what I'm going to do to the battery side later. But just this is how I've run my cable. There's other options. You can run it in the floor, through the bulkhead, under the carpet. You could potentially go down underneath the driver's seat, but for me that's too close to the exhaust. Right underneath there is the exhaust DPF, so I didn't want to get it under that stage because they've got the heat shield, then the exhaust under there, and I thought probably the best thing for me would be to hide it. This side, come here where I know it's safe, run it down the chassis to the battery, and then I can do my connections there. I've got a picture of the kit that you can buy, which has got cable connectors, heat shield, heat shrink, the special connectors for the battery terminal, and I'll just show you one hiccup that I found with my battery. 2 seconds. So with the posts that come in with this kit, there's the battery clamp, and then there's a post that sticks up, if you can focus on that one. And this post gets very, very close to the metalwork underneath this seat. So what I'm going to do is put my connector, instead of being on this post, I'm going to put it behind the nut, or the nut and bolt that crimps to the battery instead, and I'm going to cut that off so it doesn't stick out, and there's no risk of, if it goes over a pothole or if it gets a bit close to the bodywork for whatever reason, or if I go to move the seat, there will be no risk of touching the top of that. Just for peace of mind really. So I'm going to take both of them off of mine, but you can do that and then you just put the crimp the terminal on the top. I'm going to crimp mine and put the terminal on there like that, on both of them, just to be on the safe side. But you know, it's personal preference. If you're happy to leave them out because it misses it, feel free to do so. Now the battery, this leisure battery, this is the closest I can get to with the dimensions, so that when I put the post on, you'll see that the posts stick out quite a lot more than the actual battery itself. So you'll see why I want to trim that down. I mean, I can probably cut that in half and then just put the terminal underneath there, but what I'm preferring to do is I'm going to run my lead off of there and then tuck it down to the floor on both sides, so I do away with the post. And then I'm going to run positive to the positive side of the battery, and I'll show you how I wire up the split charge system when I get to the battery, because you need a relay, you need a fuse each side of the relay, one going to the vehicle battery, and then it goes from the positive side of the vehicle battery through the fuse into the relay. From the other side of the relay you should have a fuse, and then it comes into this wire to our auxiliary battery. And you don't have to hide these connector blocks under here. If you're not planning on changing your seat around, you can have them under your seat. It's not a real problem. These are just connector blocks anyway, just connecting all the harnesses together, and you can leave them under your passenger seat if ever you want to get to them. But I know at some point I want to get one of these the base plates that allow the front seats to swivel and turn back into the cab. So because I know I'm going to do it, I'm doing a little bit of prep work prior to that. So yeah, so I've hidden the cable, put that in, and I'll show you how I wire it up and connect it all up. Okay, so I'm going to wire up the connectors for the mains cable. So there's certain tools you can use to try and do this, but I'm just going to use what I've got around. So all I've done is, you've got the crimping terminal cable. I'm going to work out roughly where that cable sits, and I know that's where it is. All I'm going to do is very carefully put a little bit of pressure on and roll the cable along, so I cut the outer sheath without damaging inside. I'm just going to put a little incision there, and then there's probably quicker and easy ways of doing this, but I just want to be sure I'll get a nice finish on the cable. You can see where the cable's gone through, all the way through, and then once I know, and then I just carefully spin him off. So you can see that's how much we've taken off. That will then fit in like so and disappear. So I'm going to do the same the other end. You'll see through the video that I've already done the positive side. I've only got to do the earth left now, and then I'm ready for testing and making sure that the split charge relay works fine on my leisure battery. But we'll give it a go in a minute and then see how it works. So then that's how it'll sit when I crimp him in. So let me just find This is the leisure battery voltage, so 12.54 is actually what's in the leisure battery at the minute. I've now hooked up everything on the leisure battery, the split charge relay, the 2 fuses, which you can see in the video and some of the photographs. So all I'm going to do now is wait. I'm going to start it up in a sec. So 12.54 is our voltage at the battery. So if I start it up. So 12.54, and then when there we go, and the split charge relay works. Brilliant. So just to show you how it would work, so that's 14, so that's now charging both batteries while the engine's running. If I turn them off, and then we're now back down to, as it goes less and less and less, you should find that the relay then, probably when it goes down to 12.5, what I've done is just to check when the relay cuts out, I've turned the lights on, so I know that when the voltage drops down, it should go down low enough then and switch the relay off from the main battery when it discharges. There we go. Now that that's switched off, we're now back onto the leisure battery, and it's that easy. Job done.